She's not here, then she's had the other meeting. Okay. Trying to give Johnny Joe a couple minutes to see if he's gonna come. If not, we have 3. He sometimes comes in a couple minutes late, so we'll give him a couple minutes. Is our treasurer coming?
Let me check to see.
I don't know how much more clear I can be about this.
Very bad for you. Somewhat.
Well, it's my answer. I don't know how to say that. I mean, I don't. None of us will probably be on the board after that.
Oh, no. It's just fancy.
No, I'm on the board and everything. You're the. No, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've never said where you're from. I just think that.
I haven't even.
We wanted to say this. I someone was first. I thought I had a pen, but I don't. Thank you.
Morning.
Yeah, usually there's some down here.
Councilman Jackson.
How are you?
Share some love with you.
Not sure that city manager will be here. She's got a scheduling conflict, and Mr. Whitmore went to find the treasurer.
Can move you momentarily.
Okay,
If you'd like to wait, or we can proceed. And then-
we'll go ahead. We can even do it out of order. That's okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call the September 14th, 2023 meeting of the Clarksburg Urban Renewal Authority to order. Roll call.
Upon arrival.
Okay. We have before us the minutes of the August 17th meeting, and the September 7th meeting we'll get at a different date.
The
Yeah, the
September,
next meeting.
yeah, the following meeting.
Following me, okay. All right. So if you take a look at the August 17 minutes. They're page 3 and 4. So I personally, under unfinished business, the way the discussion is worded, I think it's a little bit confusing. Prior to any applications being discussed, it was presented to staff that the recommendations for funding far exceeded our budget. We were encouraged to go ahead and pass with the thought that we would get that money from somewhere. City manager said that's probably not a way to proceed. And then Mr. Payne raised a question about completeness of application, some of the applications, and then moved to table all of the applications. And I'm not sure that wording is reflective in these minutes.
And also, again, no disrespect to Mr. Whitmore, but there was some property that we had pulled in $14,000 or $16,000 that was thought that we could use that money.
Can you speak up, Brian, please?
But the issue is there were two things. One, we didn't have the funding available to us to fund all the requests that it was suggested we fund. And the city manager said, Mr. Whitmore said there are ways to do that. That had not ever been approved. So there's a chance we would have approved all of these and there wouldn't have been funding, which doesn't work. And then there were some questions about applications being complete. So Mr. Payne made a motion to table everything to try to address those. And I think the minutes need to just reflect those 2 points. There was discussion about the process, but the reason they were tabled was we didn't have the funding to fund them, as was suggested. And I understand that there were other ways, but that wasn't in place at the moment.
And that's no problem. Staff would recommend you table this, or at least postpone a decision on the minutes so we can reflect these additional.
Yeah, we can either table them or I checked with Mr. Kimball, either table it or
Well,
make those
minutes are unique because you can always go back and change them.
okay.
They're more of an artifact of what you are
Right.
declaring happened. So I wouldn't recommend approving them, given the scope of the changes that are being discussed, but we can provide
Table
those to
them.
you at the next meeting.
Okay. So then I make a motion that we are going to be known as the authority that tables everything.
That's okay.
But
You're good there.
I would like to table them, given the impact that it had on the applicants. I think we do need to table them and make those corrections. Okay, first and a second, is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any?
The only thing that I would like to add to that is, so the applications come in, okay? No, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason how they end up on our agenda. So when we don't have the money to fund it, because we don't have those funds, and we're looking for outside sources of money coming in because it was talked about we had sold some property and that could be moved over. And I want to finish that discussion. The city manager said at that time that hadn't been approved by city council. So that would make it short. What I'm trying to lead up to, let's say that we start funding these things, 10, which moving forward, we're not. Just because you submit an application does not guarantee you $10,000. You may get $500. Okay. With that being said, let's say that you're number 5 on the list of 7 and we run out of money. Is it fair that way?
Sure. I think that you take them as they were submitted. It's 1 through 7. You run out of money on 4, you ran out of money.
The only problem
That's my opinion.
and I agree with you wholeheartedly, but the problem is we need to let applicants know this may not get funded because we only have maybe enough money. I agree with you
After
wholeheartedly.
they apply and we're out of money,
But I
we
think
don't
it's
address-
disheartening that people are trying to grow Clarksburg and we just keep taking applications.
I think we saying it shouldn't come to us. They should be told when they come to apply
we're out of money.
that the fund is out of money, because it's September. We were out of money in August. We were out of money in month 2, and people think this is a year-long program, and they are submitting applications in good faith thinking they're coming. And there's some of you here today, I'd say probably a third of you, the timing your applications came in, you're not going to get money if we go by our budget. And I don't think people are knowing that, and they're taking their time to come in, and that's something that has never happened to this authority. And so we're trying to rectify that in some way. Fair? So just by way of education to everybody, it's quandary. Okay, so there's a lot of people here. Would anybody like to step to the podium, have any comment on the program, the authority, anything in general, any comments you'd like to make? Mr. Lyden, come on up, come on down.
All right. Yeah, I was watching the workshop last week, and I just had a bunch of comments that I wish I was able to attend, but I had some other meetings out of the city. I think a couple things that when you folks put together your thought process on who's going to get awarded or who's not going to get awarded or how much you're going to award, I think there's some processes that need to be thought about as well. One, excuse me, one would be, is it a 7-day-a-week business, 5-day-a-week business, 3-day-a-week business, 2-day-a-week business, 1-day-a-week business? I think for those that are less than 7, because ultimately that's what downtown Clarksburg needs, is 7-day-a-week businesses to bring people into downtown and offer them something to do. I also think that the seasonality of a business, if it's only a seasonal business, that should also come into thought process as well. And nonprofit businesses should be thought about as well. I think that you're going from the 80-20 to 50-50 or 90-10. I think it's a good idea, but I think that you also don't want to make it difficult for the people that are applying for the facade grants not to get them or to challenge them all the time. I think that you're keeping it simple is the easiest way. But with my previous comments, just keep those in mind as well. I think that the more people you can give money to incentivize them, because you're calling it a grant, but really it's an incentive. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, Kurt, I'm going to give you X amount of thousands of dollars to fix up your storefront. Okay, let's talk about it. I think that process works better than people coming to you and saying, hey, I need this, I need that. And not sure if you folks have even visited any of the places that are applying or not to justify it. This gentleman, the councilman, Mark Jackson over there, he would be a good guy to go to if you're running out of money. Mark, we need more money. We need the council's help to get more money into the, downtown Clarksburg to fix it up. So that's all I have to say.
That is, we have asked for more money. We have definitely asked for more money.
Mark,
That's-
do your job.
We would probably triple, because it is and that's a very good, I think there's a reason, and I'm sorry the city manager isn't here. I think there's a specific reason that she was saying nonprofits would be excluded. I'm not positive about that, but that has been something she has mentioned. So I don't know if it's something in the way the finances work through the city. I'm really not sure about that. Does anybody else have a response to Mr. Light?
I believe at one point, Mr. Whitmore did approach city council and last year, wasn't it, John, and got us up another 10 or 15,000 added to our budget when it was only 40.
That actually, it was the budget that was proposed for this fiscal year, 23-24, initially was $50,000. We had asked for just $10,000 more. A request from now Mayor Malfredjo was actually raised it to $20,000. There was a question of when to do it, so it was decided to make it $70,000 for this fiscal year. This program, when I started, was $10,000, so it's grown quite a bit.
When the scope of it has grown.
Yes.
I mean, our one grant would have wiped us out before. So this is, and there's going to be some growing pains because we've gone from like $2,000 grants to these large projects, and we're trying to figure out the scope of what people are asking for has really changed too. And okay, good comment.
It's a good thing that, but not a problem that revenue won't cure.
Right.
With some more money, we could take care of it.
Well, and we're trying to figure out ways to get more of the money related to URA activities to our budget, to us being able to use that money. So we're in the process of growing that. It's just a lot of growing. We're going from basically when I first came on, that's all we were doing was a few facade grants. And now we've got multiple programs that should bring in revenue and help us be able to grow this so everybody can get more money. We shouldn't be saying no. All right. Yeah, go ahead, John. Come on up.
I know most of you all, but I don't know everybody back there. I'm John Burnett. I own Audiovisual Concepts. I've been in Glen Elk for 38 years. My family is a staple, I feel, in this area. We used to own and just recently sold Tomorrow's Bakery after 108 years. We have supported Clarksburg wholeheartedly with many opportunities to leave with either business, but my dad had roots in Glen Elk. He didn't want to leave. So when my dad passed away 32 years ago, I kept those roots. I left my business there. I've never really counted on the city for anything. So I feel that those that took the time to fill out an application properly or completely should be rewarded and shouldn't be penalized because of those that could not fill out the application. I had great communication with John Whitmore. He made himself available to me on every question, probably more questions than anybody else asked him. But he made sure my application was complete, and it was only a 2-page application, but I wanted it right. So I feel to penalize us for the amount of requested money for those that couldn't complete their application properly is unfair and unjust. So I hope that you all take that in consideration.
Oh, and I don't think that's been a discussion.
Okay,
I mean-
well, you made it sound like, Brian you made it sound like that you wanted to keep waiting until their applications were properly filled out so that everybody got a fair share of money.
No. What I'm stating there is, if the applications are complete as they should be, presented to us with the small budget we have.
Right,
All I was saying was, if you go down through there, you keep throwing 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. Like Johnny Joe Medea says, if we only have 40,000 left and you're number 5,
then
You
it's
get
my
zero.
fault for not getting in time.
Well,
no, it's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm trying to convey to you and what John is trying to back me up on. And again, no disrespect to Mr. Whitmore. When you came in, he should have a running total of how much we have. And he should say, Mr. Burnett, it's possible if they fully fund each one of these, you won't receive anything. We'll take your application. We'll put everything together.
And he did tell me that,
Okay.
remember, John? Because
Okay.
we started this
But I wanna
project
make-
together in February, and he said, there's no money.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I haven't secured my contractor. So when I secured my contractor, I believe you and I started back in April with getting the
Yeah,
application.
this is not targeting you, John.
Oh, I didn't
this
say
is
it
just
was, I'm
saying
just
that-
saying.
And one of the problems the board has had is people submit for 10,000, but maybe they get 7,000, maybe they
Right.
get 5, maybe they get 2, maybe they get nothing.
Right, I get it.
So, but yes, I fully understand. So I want to clarify that we need to see how much we got. We don't want to run out of money a month and a half after we've got started.
well, I think one of the pieces that people don't know is we get a report from Mr. Whitmore. That report suggested we fund every one of these. His report to us representing the city was that we funded all. So now the paper trail says the city is telling you to fund all of these URA. The city is saying we would like you to fund all of these. We didn't have the funds to do
Right.
it. And that's the first time we have had that as an issue. Brought it up with the attorney, brought it up with the city manager, and it was her suggestion we not proceed in that unique situation. Because if what if what staff had said was, I suggest you fund these until you run out of money, that's different. But here we've got the city saying, yes, fund all, even today, fund them all. We don't have the funds to fund them all. So there was yes, disconnect, like, yes, we have the ability to only fund certain amounts, but anybody, I don't think you can appeal it. I don't know how that happens, but for anybody else, if the city is saying fund it, but we're saying, no, we can't fund it, that seems to me to be kind of a legal, technical difficulty there. That's why we had the workshop to try to address that. That was a first for this authority. Again, it was that wording. So it's not a penalty, and all of these will be considered in the order they came in, but we couldn't fund the entirety of them, and it was recommended that we do for each one individually. The report for each one was staff recommends you fully fund this. Staff recommends you fund this. Staff recommends you fund this, and there wasn't really a vehicle for saying what do we do with that? So that was the issue of why it was tabled, was that the funding and the recommendation didn't match. It wasn't so much the applications, honestly, but then as Brian was going through, found some discrepancies, and it just, if he is saying fund you and there's 5 and he's saying fund them all, and somebody comes and says, well, I was just down on the line, but Mr. Whitmore said fund me. What do we do with that? So that was really the issue. And I don't think you don't see that part of it.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.
And if your application is not complete, we don't accept it, so you're not in the line.
Okay, well, you had said there were incomplete
They
applications.
should
Correct.
never be submitted to us
That's what I'm saying.
from Mr. Whitmore.
Go ahead, Lou.
Thank you. Lou Ortenzi of the Clarksburg Mission. I just will say that as I've noticed towns redeveloping, often retail for-profit space gets occupied by nonprofits. And I understand there may be legal or financial aspects about supporting nonprofits in facade improvement, but if you want to support an effort in revitalizing towns, certainly you're supporting nonprofits, particularly new nonprofits. And we're an old nonprofit, 52 years up and running, on the gateway into Little Italy, Glen Oak, which is rapidly developing. In fact, Mr. Burnett's on the gateway also. So we did proceed in good faith. After about $100,000 of facade improvement in general over the last couple of years, we did do facade improvement in the form of a mural. And just appreciate your consideration. I know you're in an unestimable place to be with this discussion.
It's money.
Yeah.
Money is.
Yeah.
And what you did looks great. When you painted that like a little village, your properties, it does. When you drive in there, it looks good.
That's John.
Go right ahead.
Lou, I would like to address, you said that you've done $100,000 in facade improvement. That has been donations that have been given to you outside of this.
Yes.
So, yeah, I just want to clarify and have it on the record. The URA didn't give you $100,000 when we're sprawling over 10 grand.
Yeah. We had to do the mortar work and the paint.
Yeah.
Because we were in really rough shape.
Yeah,
We like to preserve those buildings, as I think there's great potential
Yeah.
in the future. It's hard to tell where it goes.
Well, I didn't want anybody saying that we'd given you
No.
$100,000.
That was our, we did facade improvement, but funded ourselves. Yes.
When I want to address John just a second. So like on your application, and this was something we brought up the first time it came up. The permit says 25,000, you write 30,000 for grant, which is a technicality, but for granting, those have to match. And that was one of the things we asked Mr. Whitmore to make match, and they didn't. And because your project is over that, I mean, it's okay, but
I'm closer
technically.
to 30, but when I applied for it, I had to go off an estimate.
Well-
And have you ever met a contractor that stays on estimate?
Exactly. Well, and that's what we had asked code enforcement. So when somebody gets a permit and their permit their permit differs from what they're saying the project cost is, how do we handle it? So those are some of the questions that have been trying to be answered in these couple of
And I did offer, he'll tell you I offered, I do have, since I've already, well, I'm completed now.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the last meeting,
Right.
but I'm completed now. I do have, I'm very paperwork minded and oriented, anybody that knows me. So I have every invoice, every I dotted, T crossed, so I can give them copies of that.
it's not the issue of all of that. That's okay. It's that we have to go from what the city authorized you to do.
Right.
So these applications have to match your permit. If you go over that, that's A-okay. You know, I mean, as long as you're 20, whatever, but when somebody's submitting an application that differs from the permit, we have to figure out, you know, so it's not a matter of not trust. It's a paperwork thing that's, so if your permit says 25, just I guess I'd say this to everybody, make sure what you're asking for fits your permit. That's all.
I guess
You can go
the
over it.
problem I ran into was, in the time it took between getting a contractor working on this, materials have gone crazy in the last 6 months, so.
Absolutely. And your costs may, in the end, exceed that. And that's between you and code enforcement or whatever. When we look at it, we have to look at the piece of, the permit is part of what we have to consider.
Right.
So make sure that that permit and your project cost that you're showing to us, Matt, you can go over, you can do whatever. That doesn't concern us. We don't need to know any of that, folks. But it's just like us getting the tax records. We have to follow, you know, what you put on here is fine. We really look at that permit. That's the amount we're working from of us giving the money. That's kind of our checks and balances of how much this project's going to cost. So that was one of the questions that came up. It's a minor thing in a way, but it's something we didn't want to see get out of hand. So that was one of the procedural, right?
Yeah, well, when you talk about small technicalities, we have to be very careful on what we do up here as board members, because that doing what you think is the right thing can bring you an ethics charge from the state.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is too, why did you approve an application? And it seems finite. Okay, it seems finite. But if that's something where before that application hits, maybe you need a follow-up call, has it changed? Because if your building permits 25,000 and your application says 32,000, code enforcement's gonna say, where's our $7,000 of money? You know, the percent that we charge on the thing. So it's,
Which I don't have a problem paying that either, but it's almost impossible to guess exactly. You're going off of an estimate until the work's completed, you don't know what your final cost is.
So all we're saying to any grantees, make your amount match the permit. Whatever the reality is, that's your reality with code enforcement. That's your reality of however it works. It's nothing illegal, it's nothing wrong. But for us, in terms of government granting, the permit is what we have to work from. That permit, tax records, those are ours. The receipts, that's all yours for turning in at the end. And I would expect most of these projects, in the end, a lot more money comes out of people's pockets, for sure. But when we're looking, if somebody goes back and says, why did you give them 10,000 when their permit only says the project's gonna be 7,000, but what you turned in was, oh, it's changed since then, and now it's this, we're on the hot seat for that. So anybody, and tell people that are applying, make sure that your project matches your permit. If it doesn't, then it's gotta be tabled, because we don't have the legal document but that was just an example of one of the things, and it has nothing to do with mistrust of the applicants. It's just, it's something on this checklist. It's something that just doesn't match. So those were some of the things we were going through. Okay. Any other public comments? Yes, Greg, come on.
Hi, my name is Mike Stewart. I'm the owner of Gutter Works down there. I guess my only question is allocation of funds, because we did this sidewalk restoration, right, which is federal dollars. Now, I'm a contractor. I put those numbers together. We're probably well into $2 to $3 million. Now, when you write a grant or an opportunity for businesses, those sidewalks to me haven't restored anything in Clarksburg. They kind of look the same to me. We've added some pads, we've done that. So I guess my only question is to put the funding towards that when you have an opportunity here to restore the facade of buildings, which will bring some benefit to Clarksburg.
Amen. Speak that to city
I have a-
council. Yes, that's the issue. Yeah.
And so, I understand about funding and what you have and don't have, but, you've got a group of businesses here that are willing to invest their money as well. And, I cut down trees people were sleeping in behind my building. I've tried to clean up that whole thing. I'm here, I'm doing business, and everybody else is. So and that's probably not a question for you all
Well,
today.
yeah.
Because we'd love to have a couple 100,000. I don't know, Paul, maybe you can put a good word in with Mark and get us, between you and Mark, we can get a little bit more.
But
little
to
bit more
follow
money.
up with your question, that's right. That is city council and state and federal government doing that. We are a servant to the city council.
Right.
And that's a great comment, and that's something that you probably should attend the city council meeting and say, hey. And
that's what I figured, the funding,
Yeah.
I mean, that
And you know what,
separates
and
things.
that's another thing is too, for this board can go and ask for more money. But the board also needs the citizens, these business owners, to get together and say, we would like to do more. Let's take some money from here and get it over here so we can do this.
Yeah, and I figured that was,
No, that's a good,
I just wanted to vent a little bit, so.
no, and I think that's important. And you're right, it does come from different piles of money. We would love to have a couple $100,000. And Mr. Whitmore's right. We went from 10 to now growing this. And city council has given us a couple more programs that we are to function. So city council basically kind of makes these programs, gives them to us, and then we have to figure out how to run them, And so sometimes it takes a little time. I think everybody's words are very well heard, and I'd love to see them at city council as well, because I think that's important I hope some of them watch what we do.
Right.
But I think absolutely, this is the face of the city,
Well, thank
for
you for
sure.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for investment in Clarksburg.
Yeah.
too. Your place looks good.
Do I need to stand up to ask you?
I don't care.
So, I know this has nothing to do with the urban renewal, but that other grant that went through, that was maximum of $25,000. It's really sad to see, and I know there's a lot of topic about that, but it's very sad to see that a few of those businesses that received that money, where did it go? Because they're not in business anymore. And let's just say 2 of them that I know of for a fact that are not in business. That's $50,000. There's 10 of us here trying to get $50,000 that you have that could have been put in this fund. And those people aren't in business. And from what I understand, very little documentation was turned in about where the money went to. And I can tell you from being in Glenelg for 38 years, nothing went into the building at the top of the hill on the inside or the outside. So I'm not sure where that money was supposed to go. Was it going to operating expenses or what? But again, I'd like to know how that money was spent and who do you even address to find that question out? Because
City council.
City council.
And that's why sometimes, people might think, well, we're nitpicking as a board. We're just trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And that's all we can tell you is we're going to do what's right.
If we're not political, we're citizens like you, some business owners, all of that, and we're given a really hard task. And I love the people that have shown up here. And I think maybe we could put URA on the agenda as a light item to a city council meeting and encourage all of you and ourselves to come and say, this program really requires some attention. We've got interest in this. And we're basically able to operate it for 2 months. We need year-long funding for these projects. People want them because you're investing money too.
Right.
It's coming out of your all's pockets too.
Johnny, Joe, and I spoke about this one time, and it was nothing other than, remember I talked to you about it. I've had an opportunity to move to Bridgeport many times, by the city council, or different members, because we have a large clientele base. But my heart is in Clarksburg. My family grew up and made their life and living in Clarksburg. So it's a real tough decision to move to somewhere like Bridgeport. I mean, I've been as much as told as, you'll more than double your business if you move to Bridgeport. And I said, well, I can't handle what I have now, so I'm happy where I'm at. So, and I'm very content with saying that. And I mean, I think Lou has been there enough years, he sees that I keep a good flow. I mean, we have very large projects, and I just think that the support from the city could be, I don't want to use the word better, but
No, but
it could be better.
it could be.
And I guess the other word, I think they should acknowledge long-term businesses. I've been in business since I graduated high school. I've been in business 38 years at ABC. I just started my 39th year. The bakery was there 108 years, and I ran that too for the last 32 years after my dad died.
Well,
So,
and I hear you saying, the other thing I hear you saying is our city could pay more attention to the wants of business owners and loyal business owners and the people who live and work in this community and what they're asking for. And what you're asking for is support to improve the businesses that are there, improve the buildings that are there, bring more people in, that your effort, and you're investing in that. And then we would like to see the city invest more in what you all are asking for. And I think the fact we're already out of money tells you this is a need.
and my final statement is, maybe people may or may not agree with me, but I'll just go on the cuff and say it anyway. I don't think that the business should be allowed to apply for the grant if they don't own the property. If you're renting, then the landlord should apply for the grant, because who's most beneficial from this if you go out of business? For instance, the restaurant in Glen Elk that's gone now. I mean, no disrespect to the owners of the building, but they had everything to win and nothing to lose.
Right.
Because it benefited their building, and then that guy's gone and their building is supposedly taken care of.
I can tell you, and if our work session last week was really, really nice, and it took into consideration some of the things you all are saying. There had been a recommendation to give a greater percentage to new businesses versus old, and we struck that. Everybody gets, so even if you've been here long, that's important. We're going to make a distinction between business building owners and tenants for signage and for grant amount, like you're saying, and give an opportunity for building owners to get money in addition to tenants. And we're going to make that amount different. So I think.
Or have some accountability to the tenant. Okay, we're going to give you $10,000. I'm just using that as a number. You must continue to be in business for X amount of months, or we can pay a lien against your inventories and properties to recover our investment.
He said your favorite word, John and Joe, lean. That's,
I mean,
yeah,
there's
accountability. There is no
It's
accountability.
very frustrating.
There is no accountability, and that directly affects this authority. I think in terms of our funding, and there are other ways. So
We're very sloppy about how we give away money.
And-
We try not to be on this board. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying.
No, why didn't you said we? I mean, I just wanted to let you know that we really, I think we do.
I think well, and
We
I
spend
think,
it like it's ours.
I think part of the frustration to applicants is we're sitting here trying to be more accountable. And sometimes it may not be that transparent to all of you or anybody listening, but you've got a group of volunteers here who get nothing to be here because we love this city and because we want to do right with the money. And that sometimes doesn't look like we're being effective, or it looks like we're slowing things down, but it's, we mention every meeting, the fiscal responsibility, and we would rather table and wait and get the right information, and that, I'm sure for many people that has looked slow or ignorant or whatever, but it is all about trying to be fiscally responsible, I think.
Just do the right thing. That's all.
And we support, I mean, we're so glad to have so many, this interest. So let's go on to Mr. Whitmore.
One more question.
Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead, come on up.
Good morning. I would just like to kind of share my concerns and just share. We've been here, Kim Harvey from Gorlock's. We've been here going on 2 years now. Seems like 30, but it's been 2 almost. And, you know, I share the same exact thoughts as John, as we feel as investors, we came into this city making a sizable investment. We have 2 of the largest buildings right now in Clarksburg on 2 separate deeds. So therefore, the URA, we can apply for 2 applications. But there's consistency and traction. And when you come into an area like this, and we're from out of state, we're from Massachusetts, from Boston. $1 million question, how'd you get from Boston to Clarksburg? You know, you do projections, you do scopes of work, you look at budgets, you look at migration patterns, demographics, geographics. We found Clarksburg to be an opportunity for us and to bring socio-economic development, revitalization. We found our buildings as a hidden gem.
Yeah.
And we're making our shine again, and we're doing a great job with it. But since inception, coming into the city and looking for funds, there's a couple of different things that I would just like to bring out and just think about them. Is it a want or a need? When these applications come into you folks, is it a want or is it a need for these applications? So for example, we're in 2, opportunity zones. We're in we are historical buildings that have been grossly neglected for all these years. So when I'm filling out my projections for this year, last year, our goal was to fill up our buildings in interior projects, right? The occupancy is 96% right now, from 30% in a year and a half. We have renovated and updated 23 out of 24 units, and now we have all high yielding income earners coming into the city. And now there's nothing for them to do now. Gore 4 is the only building or the only business that's open 7 days a week. So I think we have to really look at the URA with beautification, because these are for facades. We want our city to be bright again. We want it to be encouraging. We want to attract and retain people to come into the city. And our goal at Gorlock's, because we take up the whole half of the block, and we're the first buildings to be seen. So it's a first impression, So we no longer have a beautification committee, and there was $80,000 of funds in there, right? So we walk around all the time with our dog. We love the city. We've got great relationships here, but there's just a darkness and a gloominess that is in our downtown area. And if we want to improve that, we need to have the funds. So having $100,000 or $200,000 in a URA fund shouldn't even be an issue. It should be a priority, because you should be able to go down Main Street as a committee and say, look at your building looks terrible. We will give you $10,000 to improve it. Give these people incentives, give them the visualization, and offer it to them. And that will give them incentive. I've got 3 investors coming into the city. Mm-hmm. One is buying the Empire Building. Another one is buying another 9-family unit historic down in, I forget, I'm still learning all these like little West End places. And I can tell you, they're coming in, making substantial investments into the city as well. And what are you going to do? Come in and say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any money for you either? And prioritize it. Is it a want or a need? I've got $80,000 of exterior projects to be done by the time the snow flies. I've been working on this forever. The other thing that I'd like to bring out is that when people put in their applications and they pay their building permits, the applications that are sitting in front of you, I paid almost $600 worth of building permits. I asked John, I said, so if I don't get the funds, can I get reimbursed my permit fee? If I don't get the URA funds that I just put in, do I get reimbursed? And he says, I don't know. That's a good question, you know? So maybe that's
I mean,
something,
if you're doing the work, I don't know why you still need a building.
but I guess the problem is that when you have a substantial investment like I have right now, I disagree with first come, first serve. I think it should be priority based. And I think you should have timelines, or I would suggest you have timelines for this stuff, because it's taken me a long time. The one project that I have is a plaster wall in the back of my building. It's not so easy. I've got high voltage lines, I've got cable lines, and I'm still trying to figure out how we can wrap and disconnect certain high voltage lines so I can get a lift up there for 2 days for my contractors to do the work. But when you come in and you make these investments in these cities, time is money and money is time. And I can't just be tabled and then 30 days go by and then another 30 days go by. Time is money, and time is of the essence for those of us that are doing the work and getting it done. We have business plans, we have projections. I already know the projections that I need for next year. But when you're talking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in a URA fund, that's minuscule to what we need to revitalize this area.
And we need you to go to city council because we greatly appreciate what you're telling us, but we have to go ask. John has to ask city council. We hear you.
No, I
But
get it.
we need the citizens and the business owners to go to city council because they are the ones that fund us, and there's no way we can do it.
I understand,
Yeah.
but this is a stepping stone, right? And and if we can all advocate for each other and we all have that same common goal, to revitalize family-owned businesses. A lot of people could move out of here. There's no incentive to stay here. I have people coming to me all the time that want to come into our retail spaces and say, oh, I need $2,500 for signage. Well, that's great, but they want to start 30 days ago. This process has to have consistency and traction. And to keep tabling and redoing this and redoing that, time is money and money is time.
But an incomplete application is an incomplete application, and it has nothing to do with us.
I understand that.
Nothing to do with us.
I get it. It's happened to me several times, so I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to also emphasize, is it a want or a need? Is it a want to help businesses like John and, Mike, yeah. I only had one cup of coffee this morning, sorry. And businesses like mine, or, other businesses on the main street that need to get cleaned up.
Well, I think maybe we can get a moment at the city council meeting. I mean, this is good because you guys, all your comments are, on the minutes, but they're on the record and they're being saved. We are streamed. And so these are things that city council can watch and hear. And, thinking about your comment of want or need and timely, all we can do is address them when they come, address applications when they come in, which means that by now there is no money. Like for your, and I understand.
And if there's no money, we can't do some of these projects.
Right.
It's crucial.
Absolutely.
When you're doing an $80,000 project, it's crucial to get a large percentage of that. And why shouldn't you? Lou's done such a great job with the mission, but that's a nonprofit.
Right.
And, I look up and down Main Street and say, we spent $32,000 or $30,000 on flowers.
Well, let's try
And,
to.
how about taking that $30,000, finding a solution for fresh flowers in the city, which I'm all for, but it would be great to have that $30,000 to disperse into something that would last forever.
So I agree with you. And I know when Paul and John, when we were young, we were growing up and going to WI, downtown was busy. We had an open campus and we'd come downtown and eat lunch. You got to leave and go do anything, you know, and it was wonderful. So yeah, exactly. Especially if you were in journalism class. So we appreciate that. There's got to be a way to do that. And this went from a very small grant to a huge program that could really help people. That the URA can assist city council in managing funds to go to people. So maybe, I don't know if you can ask the mayor if we could get a moment at the next city council meeting to share if somebody would like to come and just emphasize that we would like, we even asked for our couple thousand that was left over from last year because people didn't want a couple thousand, they wanted 10,000. So we've asked if we could get that rolled into our budget this year, and that's been a no.
Well,
So we do
maybe
need more money.
think out of the box and think longer term, you know, think larger allocations, longer term. So instead of just getting $10,000 or $15,000 increase, if you want these big historic buildings to get cleaned up and people to come in and incentivize them to do things, you're going to have to start putting more money into this account.
And I think that's part of the long-term city plan that city council is working on outside of what we do. So absolutely.
Well,
Thank you.
long-term for
us
long-term, but long-term for people like us, where we need the funds sooner than later. I don't have 10 years to do certain work because my buildings are going to fall apart, you know? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all for speaking. And I know Chance is here, and you probably would have something to say too, but we'll just say thanks for being here. And John, come up and do the executive director report, and then we'll have Kim come and tell us how much money we do have.
And before John speaks, I would just like to say on behalf of the council, everyone is allotted time to speak at the council meetings. And I encourage all of you business owners to come to the council meeting and share your concerns. Because, you know, not just myself, but everyone on council needs to hear so that we can make informed decisions based on what you, the entrepreneurs and business owners, have to say.
And what they need. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well said. Hi, John.
Good morning. Staff had the opportunity to attend the West Virginia Main Street Conference yesterday. It's still going on today. It's actually brownfields of Main Street. One of the aspects of that conference and the city's participation in the On Track program, if our application is approved, we have a method to work with the state, specifically the State Historic Preservation Office, to identify those preservation needs, especially as they relate to pivotal structures and contributing structures in our historic districts. It's something that we're working on to also facilitate additional stakeholder groups to get more money, not only through the URA, but just through other means. That's going on. We are hopeful to have an application submitted in early October, with the expectation of a decision in the beginning of the year. Once that organization gets up and running, it'll be a 2-year process at minimum. It'll be something that the URA will probably be engaged with when it comes to the historic especially the downtown property inventory in Glen Elk, because that's the area. Other than that, so all of the applications before you today, they're going to have a recommendation of approval. A few of the ones at the end have a recommendation to ask for the applicant's building permit fees to be waived in the event that funding is not available. The issue being, the question is, that would have to generally either come from the city manager or from city council, so it'd be a recommendation on your behalf. We can't guarantee that it would be approved. As one of the applicants noted in the comments, there is a substantial fee, and while it wouldn't seem like it would be a hindrance, it's those small fees that add up that can really move the needle on when a project will even come through the door.
You don't want to throw money out the window.
And it's frustrating to you all, because you all want to see complete applications. A lot of this material gets subjective. We've historically been pretty lax after the meeting, and especially probably after today's meeting, we're going to have a very firm understanding of the specific improvements we're looking at, and we'll be able to guide, especially, or hopeful that we'll be able to have some general guidelines that we can reflect upon what you all want to see.
Well, and not just what we want to see, I think also our program requirements being inconsistent with what citizens want. It's all well and good for us to sit here and have a program, but if the program meets very little need, either because of it's not being utilized or it not being funded, then that's a problem for our community. Okay,
So that concludes my report.
thank you. Kim? Thank you for coming up.
I apologize, I don't have a written report today, but I just wanted to talk about the facade grant line, which you all know how much there is there, 70,000, and we've spent 10 so far, so there is 60. And the side lot program, we did receive the $16,000 from the property at 2 Stadium Drive. So in the next budget revision presented to City Council, there will be a line with that 16,000 in there in the side lot program, I believe, if that's how it's supposed to work. I'll double check with John. So that can build.
So that would be, is that going to be money that we don't know yet? City Council hasn't decided if that's money we can put into the facade program? Or if City Council's going to keep that
Do
money?
you want it?
We would like it. We would like any money they would give us
Yes.
from any place.
The staff will work to make sure that the 16,000 is included in either some form of URA budgeting. That's what we can do at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Then, of course, we can follow up and ask for whatever you all want to ask council for a revision for the facade grant.
Okay.
line.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's our collections on the outstanding demolition?
Well, for the URA demolitions, they're not as great as they are for the current city demolitions. We collected almost $90,000 yesterday on current year demolitions. So, of course, it's easier to find those that are still around. We have a lot that people we just cannot find on the older ones that have moved out of the area and we're unable to locate. We do have liens on all the properties and all that. We have lost a lot of liens of properties that have gone to tax sale, because if they go to tax sale, the liens just go away. The city has the opportunity to buy the property, but that would cost way more than what our liens are worth. So we don't usually take that route.
Can we get a list of who's owed? I don't care, the city's on you guys, but whatever's the URA, if we could have a list of that.
Yes.
Thank you. You don't have to stay, Kim. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. I know you've got work to do, but thank you for being here. Okay, let's move into unfinished business.
So the first item for you, staff previously provided the staff reports. The issues that have come up with the structure, I guess, in discussion, my understanding is the applicant's here, so any additional questions could be fielded by them. In general, if the URA does not feel that this application, other applications, enough information has been provided, especially at this stage, staff would just say to deny it at this time. What we can do, especially as it relates to the need for additional renderings or additional imaging, if you could include that in a recommendation. That way we can provide I can provide a recommendation that back to the applicant to say you need to have showing what the improvement's going to look like, and if you need to see anything specifically. That could include color scales, materials, if you want to see them. I understand the developers are going to be telling you that they need to have the money, you need to have your information. I'm here to help you get that information. So whatever you need, if you don't have it before you, especially given the conversation, given the direction of the board that we've received, especially as it relates to the intent of the program, really, I guess, the want of the board to have it more business driven, making sure that we're meeting the intent. So with that said, if I guess the applicant's here, if you have any additional questions, I can reread the staff report. We don't have any direct changes for this one this time.
So
This is FG 232402.
Now in Barbario Brothers facade grant application seeking $10,000 of a $13,064.06. Project to paint and repair portions of the exterior facade, replacement of window glazing and visible gutters on the side of 1704 West Pike Street. Does anybody have?
Is, one of the questions that came up, is this building occupied or is it just storage for the ice cream shop?
No, it's not storage, it's in preparation to rent.
Okay. You are going to rent that out to somewhere?
It's another business, restaurant business is going in there.
Okay.
But they're not in it yet.
No, we're making improvements right
Why would they apply?
Well, they would apply as the,
To-
no, they're applying as the building owner.
Or sometimes, you got people that, you have a building and you need to do some work in order to even advertise it as, to get it ready for a business to go in.
We've got estimates and grant assignments, we're putting in bathrooms, we have a work order with the power company now, we're upgrading the power three-phase, 200 amp service.
How long are those improvements going to take? And when do you expect to have the business in?
The improvements on the application are overall.
Over, when do you
Overall,
anticipate the restaurant would be
yeah,
in
we're
there?
shooting for November 15th.
Let's see.
When?
Where you at?
Well, no, you can do whatever. I mean,
I make a motion to approve the grant.
Is there a second?
I make a, my
Well,
thoughts
you
here.
have to
is-
see if there's a second first.
No.
Okay, so that motion dies for lack of second. Is there any other motion on this?
I want to see them get some business in there. I make a motion that we give them at least $2,000 to get started. And then when the business comes in, the other business can come in and apply for money offset where it's going to be set up.
As the tenant, like for signage, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Jordan seconds? Yeah.
I don't think that's the,
Discussion.
we're having a discussion.
Yes, now it's discussion.
Somebody comes in and applies, they meet our requirements, give them the money.
The issue
And I don't care
is,
if a business is coming in or not, they're preparing to get a business and they made an investment to do it. But that's just my opinion.
part of the issue is we declined an application this spring because the business wasn't open. And that kind of fits some of what John's saying.
But he's as a property owner coming in
Right.
he's making improvements to his building. I mean, it's a building that it's paying taxes on.
The building's been vacant for 10 years until we bought it.
Well, your motion was declined, so I want to see them get something to at least get started. So I put a couple grand out there.
How's that going to come in and say, hey, you already got your money. Now you do I have to reapply to get their other 8? Or now we're putting contingencies on things that never
No,
were.
there's no-
There
no
were
contingency.
contingency. I mean,
No,
for,
if you're going to give them 2 and they want 10, how are they going to get the other 8?
but part of the program is in the spring, we declined a business who wasn't yet open. For the same reasons John was saying, there's not, and I understand what you're
I don't
saying, and
remember
that's,
mine off the top of my head.
it was CAPS.
Okay.
They got declined because they weren't in business yet.
I got you. Open
Yeah.
to the public, I'm like, if you got a business license, you're in business. If you're paying taxes, you're in business.
That's not,
That applicant did not have a business license.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that they want a business, but these guys, this is a business. The
So their
owner of the
business is the
property,
owner.
the owner of the property is coming in and say, hey, I want to revitalize my property. Meets the requirements. I don't, go ahead with your motion.
Okay, is there any other discussion? So the motion is for 2,000. Would you have an interest in amending that to at least 5?
You want to go
I
5?
amended to 10,
But 10 was turned down, so they got nothing. We could just decline the thing. I could have made a motion to decline it. So I want to try to see them get something. They have a business that's coming in. That business can apply and get money. Because as far as that goes, they could use the money to pay for the restrooms that they fronted the money for.
No, they can't. They can't use money for the restrooms. They're inside.
There
he's
you go.
saying shuffle the money instead of using, they've already,
We have a motion on the floor to amend the 2,000 to 5,000. Does anybody want to change my $2,000 motion to 5,000?
Jordan would have to,
No.
or you,
made a John new
Okay.
motion. Or some- you have to make a new motion. Because you're amending one, I don't know.
So the proper way to do it would be, you could amend your motion.
Right.
Okay.
If you want to.
Right. Well, we can amend the motion from 2,000 to, I'd be willing to go as much as 3,000. So I'm amending to $3,000 and voting on that.
is there a second for 3,000?
I'll second 3,000.
Okay. Any discussion on the 3,000? All in favor of the 3,000, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So
Now you have to vote on the 3,000. You just voted to amend it to 3,000.
is there a vote on accepting the motion for 3,000? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
So what they can do, Paul, is when the restaurant comes in, they can apply as well for signage or maybe the windows or some of that. They can apply. It doesn't have to just be a sign. So they can apply for some of the things that you were wanting. At least that gets you started. And then they can come in and apply as well and get you up to more of that money. Okay. Okay.
The next item is FG 2324-03. This is for 409 North 4th Street, ABC. In particular, the applicant has amended the building permit to account for all the improvements listed. Before the previous building permit, we had the front facade. Additionally, code enforcement's here if there's any questions regarding building permits, but generally there is a pretty good flexibility in the ability of an applicant to amend the permit. It's when we're gonna have a situation further in the agenda I'll talk about when it gets a little more complicated, but for these improvements, the applicant was able to amend the permit pretty quickly. If there's something that you see wrong with the permit now, staff's confident we can get all those issues corrected, but given the amounts, the $10,000 would still be the maximum award amount.
Is there a motion on the $10,000 for audiovisual concepts?
Make a motion to approve it.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the 10,000. Is there a second? I'll make the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, All in favor of approving the 10,000 for audiovisual concepts, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, next one.
So this is FG 2324-04718 West Pike Street Gutter Works. In particular, after our discussion, given there was a question as to the applicant's ability to obtain funding for improvements that they're doing. That question is in the current guidelines and in the proposed guidelines that we hopefully vote on later. The applicant is always allowed to do their own labor. It's just you're not going to be giving them money for the labor. You'd be giving them money for the materials. Additionally, with this application, though, there probably is going to be some concern regarding the actual what's going to be occurring on site and your ability to visualize it. I believe that the applicant's here to discuss this in more detail. If additional information is needed, staff would recommend the denial route. Unfortunately, it does deny the application, but we would be able to provide the applicant hopefully with either revised standards in accordance with the guidelines or at least in accordance with your wishes as decided by, as discussed at the workshop last week. That concludes my report.
It's already been tabled. I think what he's saying is at some point we've got to stop tabling and you've got to, yeah. So the issue is there are two,
This is, you're
there's a
right.
rendering and there are two estimates. And who owns the building? Gutter, you actually own the building. Okay, so it's your building and so it's got the two estimates. It just doesn't have a rendering of what the changes would look like. We would just have to imagine the changes as outlined on here. And there's a detail.
And that's something, as the authority, you have the ability to require renderings that you see fit. There is always going to be a question of there's an expense associated with producing renderings. If you don't feel like it's providing you with enough information, then that can be fixed. Given the information received about having an application in order at the time of applicant submitting it, at this time for these applications, we'd recommend denial so that we can provide that information up front and get that prior to it coming before you.
So here's some of the issue too, that if you have a line item in your estimate, then we can go through and say, all right, I can envision a new gutter. I can't envision a sign. So I can't envision that. So we could, and we've required renderings of signs. So if we knew how much it was going to cost to do each of these other things, I think it's realistic to proceed with gutters and cleaning windows and that kind of stuff. And we could offer to fund the part that we can envision without worrying about the sign. And we could just disregard the sign and amend it as such.
You have that authority.
But we don't have it broken down in. Okay.
My question, if you're putting in, asking money for a sign, I assume you went to a sign company, they would have produced a rendering for you to say, is this what you want? Did you receive that? Or have you addressed the sign company yet?
Yeah, I just don't have a rendering exactly what we're doing. Some of that costs money to put into that, so this is an option. I just wanted to, we did give a rendering, I believe, when I filled out that application, it's a picture.
We got a picture of the building.
with the white.
that open space. I have to do that with my computer to get that work out.
I just assumed that if somebody's quoting you a price for a sign,
Yeah,
you would want to see, oh, that, I don't want Gothic lettering, I want block style lettering. So it would be on the onus of that company, so that you don't have a cost in trying to make something. They would have submitted something to you for approval for it,
yes.
right? Okay. You want to just want to table that and get a breakdown.
What? It's like we could approve new garage door, paint in front of building, remove new, but we don't have a rendering of the lights. We can't really do that or the sign. We can approve cleanup and hallway. So there are things we could approve without that rendering, but we don't know how much they cost.
That's an issue with this application, yes.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of stated issue.
Amy, I make a motion that, I hate to do it, but we need to table this one, I believe, and get everything squared back up with a breakdown, and then we can.
Do we table or deny?
I think what he's.
Denied.
It's incomplete.
Yeah, denied. So I'm making, sorry.
I would just recommend that we can, with a finding for a more detailed cost estimate and a rendering of the and of the sign. That way I can provide that.
Well, and if
gives you a
the,
finding of fact.
if the cost estimate for the other pieces, exceeds the $20,000, you don't even need the sign. So the sign, that can stay out of it. What we need is a breakdown of what things cost that you can show and that you can prove. Okay. All right, so there's a motion to deny. Is there a second? Do you want to?
Yeah,
Right,
second.
okay, so there's a motion and a second to deny and encourage reapplication. And I think, we're saying that there's a timeliness in this. We understand it was first applied in June, so that part we can waive. I think that's not a problem for the discussion part of it. Okay, so all in favor of denying and encouraging reapplication with more detailed costs in the estimate. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So Mike, do you understand what and John will work with you on that. Okay.
Next application is FG 2223-05. This is for 312 North 4th Street, Clarksburg, Michigan. So I'm looking at what the board wants to do with these funds, given that this is a nonprofit and that this is mural work as opposed to preservation activities. If it makes sense to deny, if the authority feels it makes sense to deny the application, going back to the need for business development in addition to historic preservation. That's what staff would recommend your finding be based on. But alternatively, the application does meet all the current guidelines. You can approve the full funding amount. There was a challenge in finding a second quote, so staff reached out to another muralist in the region to get a quote. It's pretty challenging actually to get muralists in the area, so I was a little surprised at the price of how. At first I thought it was high, now it's low. So
yeah. Is there a motion on this, on the mural in 312 North 4th Street?
Unfortunately, at this time, I think we should deny this application based on the fact that it is a mural, like we discussed also that it's a nonprofit. So my recommendation is a denial.
Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion to deny and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Agricultural Foundation. Okay, next one.
I hoped Mr. Policano would be in attendance today. So this is for FG 222306, 120 South 3rd Street, Clarksburg Beauty Academy. This one gets very complicated after what I'm about to tell you. And when we provide our recommendation, we were saying that staff should, or not staff, but the URA should approve a lower amount to a different contractor. That contractor that was provided in the application was Kennedy Painting. The applicant, it would result in a different amount, roughly 5,000, I had it written down somewhere. Roughly, total ask of $5,405.04. Upon reading the application or the staff report, staff has been working with Mr. Policano. There's an issue. He had suggested it may make more sense than to go with Kennedy Painting. So we tried to do a revised building permit for Kennedy Painting. For some reason, Kennedy Painting wouldn't work out. So the information presented to you today isn't complete because that second quote for Kennedy Painting is pretty null and void now. Instead, he was able to find another contractor who could match the price of Kennedy. So, very long, convoluted way of saying the applicant is seeking the funding as soon as possible. It would be the staff recommended funding award of $5,405.04. I believe that's included. Let me pull up
But it's
the.
also the back of the building, not facade. It faces the alley.
That's a weird building you do have a Jackson Square in, so it's providing to the public realm, but it's not a public right-of-way facing one, which, while that's not in the guidelines currently, it was discussed at the workshop and is going to be discussed later today.
If I could, Amy. The reason why I would look at approving the 5,000 whatever dollars is on the back of that building. And if everybody's seen this picture here, and the reason why I would look at that, that's actually the fire escape. So that's a safety concern, not so much as an improvement to, you know what I'm saying? That's actually a safety concern right there with that. And so, yeah, we could approve that. And then the rest of this application, I need to speak with city council about it on the other side of this. So he does have somebody that can match that.
Yes.
He just wasn't able to submit.
We have a building permit that was filed on Tuesday. He filed a building permit with all of his quotes. That was another thing that's happening is hedging the bet. So when he was updating the Kennedy quote, that's what we noticed there were the issues with contractor licensing issues, which are getting rectified but aren't yet. So he was able to find somebody, and they were in our system to be able to get a building permit.
And what was the amount that you was?
Staff would recommend the funding award, one moment, I apologize, just $5,405.04.
And that's based on this other.
It's based on the lower of the two quotes, and the lower quote still being the prevailing contractor who's going to be used for the project.
Is there a motion on this?
I make a motion to accept this one based on a $5,405.04 correction to the award amount.
The award request.
Award request.
Okay, so that the award request would be $5,400.04. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Carries.
Next up is FG 222407. This is 817 North Ohio Avenue. Flipping through the pages, this begins on page 81 of the packet. This one, once again, staff is seeing the issues as we discussed it last week. In particular, let me pull this up. Once again, there is materials identified. There was a question regarding, I guess, ownership, who's going to be doing the work. But overall, I mean, this one does have the ability to be approved, but I can see where you need additional information if it makes sense. So. And in lieu of not providing a recommendation, I still would say a recommendation of approval. If you're I guess if you're queasy about it, if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or if you want more information, either once again doing a denial on this with a recommendation for that specific information, or I mean, a tabling of this item could also occur, but at this point, yeah, staff can see it either way.
I see the staff application review checklist is blank. I'm sure if you would, that it's all, you have that information.
So, yeah, this was.
Oh, yeah, one that's on 84.
There's
it's
redundant
checked.
paperwork in here.
Yeah, so this has happened, we noticed, we've been having issues with our computers. Sometimes when I go in and I scan these and then I do the review on top of the PDF, and we'll get a printout and it won't even be like remotely like this. It'll just be garbage letters that are happening. So
Yeah, so disregard page 90 and 91.
page 84 complete it was reviewed, it was complete per the letter of the guidelines.
Yeah, the
but
completed application you're looking for is on 83 and 84.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have a breakdown of what the I didn't see a breakdown in here except, okay. There. So we can't, okay. On page 104.
Yeah.
That's all the outside work. Interesting. One quote is, yeah, we got one for 13,400, one for 75,000.
I talked to John about this. We tried dealing with a lot of contractors in Clarksburg, and they would come and we'd say that they were going to give us an estimate, and then never would return our calls. The big estimate was our future plans on building out. I had asked him to do a separate, and he never returned my calls.
Okay.
I met Shannon, which is our contractor, and he did a separate, and that is,
That's the 13.
yes, and that's what we need. The other stuff can future wait, but we're needing a new door, and we need to fix the outside of that. And that's the 13,000.
Okay.
But yes, I called contractors, and they would not respond to me. They wouldn't give me a new estimate. I dealt with 7 different people.
Oh, we believe that. Okay.
Yeah, so I had talked to John.
So this
and
is
John
you all
said
as
it was
tenants. Okay. So this is them as tenants, and we're not sure thank you, John.
With the current guidelines, they're
That
still
means-
eligible. yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So is there a motion on this application?
Well, and Debbie here, she does own the property, it's her business.
Okay.
And you guys are in the process of buying the building or you bought the building?
She has bought the
She
building.
bought it.
Make a motion to approve the grant.
So motion to approve. Is there a second? Either of you second the motion? I'll second the motion. So, that we approve. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the grant for Champs, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Okay, this is FG 222408, the final of the unfinished business. There were questions, we didn't get to the staff report for this one, but total project cost, 13, let me make sure that's Champ Central, sorry. Total project cost, get it. By the end, this thing's all screwed up. I apologize for this time delay. There we go. Okay. Total project cost of $30,000, proposed applicant contribution of $20,000. They're requesting $10,000. This is for 250 Monticello Avenue. If you're driving down that road, there's a white building with the bay doors. So the applicant in this case, we have project information box with paint, exterior of the building, removing the garage doors and exterior lights. I can see where the board would probably want to see additional information as it relates to what that is going to really entail. If additional information is warranted, specifically, what staff would probably, if it makes sense, you'd probably want to see exact coloring or materials used. We can request that information with a new application.
I mean,
What page is that? I'm not finding that.
here.
One starts at 112,
Yes.
then goes through to 125.
Yeah, got it. Has it been completed?
126.
Has this job been completed? Because it was, I mean, this is all dated in March, which makes it way out of our timeline.
One of the things, so the application was dated March. We didn't actually receive the application until, we'll go ahead here. So on July 25th, the applicant, my understanding is the applicant had given the application to either a council member or someone with the municipality. There was a delay when it actually reached development, or the economic development office. So that explains those timelines to a certain extent.
But is it complete?
It's complete per the program guidelines. Is it acceptable for you as an authority? If you need more additional material, it's not. That's how I'll answer that, because we can get to the additional material during the application phasing.
Is the work complete?
Oh.
Yeah, if the work is completed, this is out of, even if it was lot, it is way out of our timeline.
Well, I don't believe the applicant's here for this one. To my knowledge, the work is not completed. it's not. And they would have had to have gotten a certificate of occupancy for that structure. And my knowledge is there isn't a certificate of occupancy yet either.
What, their permit is running out. I mean, so.
That's something code enforcement has a flexibility of extending permits
Right.
pretty easily. So
Yeah, I just think if this was the intent, the quotes and everything are from March and it's September.
Yeah.
Is there a motion on this application?
Motion to table?
I think
Or deny?
we've tabled it once. I think you need to deny or,
All right, I make a motion to deny this application.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
And we're denying it because it's the time out of,
And a lack of detail on some of it. Okay, so there's been a motion to deny and a second. Any discussion other than what you were asking? Okay, all in favor of denying it, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, so we've approved $28,404 so far. Okay. Next one.
So we have new business now. These relate to Lower Lux properties, 118 South 2nd Street and 209 West Pike Street. We'll be starting with 118 South 2nd, that is FG 222409. That begins, find the correct page, 6. And I'm probably not going to be able to find the correct page because mine's all messed up now.
127.
Yeah.
Yeah.
127, first one goes through 138, and then the second one is 139.
Okay. Gorlux Development LLC is seeking URA facade grant funds to repair and replace the lower facade of 118 South 2nd Street. This is tax map 23, parcel 294.1, to enhance the stucco-based first floor per the application. The process will involve the use of FRP panels, a fibrous plastic material that provides direct fit siding similar to hardy board or other cement-based products. So it's not going to be necessarily a natural material, but it would be something that provides durability and visual appeal similar to a natural material. The advantage being versatility in design and providing dimpled surfaces to smooth surfaces, so you can make it look like anything. Staff understands that the applicant proposes to use this material in the lower business entrances. Now, this applicant's here. There was a question when I was reviewing this on the actual location of where these would be located and what improvements were going to be happening, especially as it relates to the rear of these structures. And I know as is currently, we're not necessarily going to be looking at the rear in the future, but on page 137, I mean, you can see the current condition of the rear of these structures. There is clear facade needs. The applicant has identified that they're not going to be utilizing the current green colors associated.
Incoming call.
I'd probably just go.
Where's the end on that?
But the applicants identified the same green color schemes that are on the front of the building would be utilized for this project. The applicant's here for any additional questions related to items A and B of new business. For the 118 South 2nd Street, the total project costs $22,368. proposed applicant contribution of $12,368 and a request of $10,000. Staff is recommending approval of this one given the condition of the structure. If you would like additional architectural renderings or opinions on, especially as it relates to materials, we could work with the applicant to get that information, but how do I put this? The city is confident that the applicant is going to be utilizing materials and design techniques that would be historically complementary to the properties as opposed to negative, and just trying to get something into over top of the current stucco. That concludes staff report.
Make a motion to approve the grant.
There's a motion to approve the grant. Is there a second?
Before we do that, I got a question. You circled this down through here. What are we actually replacing?
I think the applicants here can discuss the specific project.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Where are you putting the panels? Just so everybody understands, what are you changing out?
So there's rotted wood. There's rotted wood all in the front, and then
Of the entrance or the whole thing down?
we're doing the whole front, and then the one section on the side of the dance studio or on the corner section. So
The bottom and the top and the column.
yeah, so on the bottom is wherever there's rotted wood, it's going to be replaced with PVC for longevity and longevity of maintenance. And then the panels, the plaster panels are going to be replastered with a better material. So it's not going to change the look of it. It's going to improve the longevity and the maintenance. And then in the front of that corner area where there was damage to the building, when the sidewalks were being replaced, they smashed up all the wood on the bottom of that as well. So, but I had already had the application in the process with
Are
that.
they going to reimburse you for that? For that damage?
It wasn't that much of a dam. It was just
Just a strip?
they basically just, it was a 2-inch piece of wood that was rotted anyways. And then the back of 118 South Second Street, that big ugly orange wall, that's all plastered, and that will be reinforced with a more heavy-duty mesh and plaster type of material. But that wall really is structurally unsound right now. So that's why I'm trying to get that done ASAP and coordinate Mon Power and Frontier to move wires. And it's a coordination for that back wall. We gotta lop the power somehow so we can get a lift in there, and it's a pretty extensive project. But if it doesn't get fixed, I'm fearful for the weather because there's big, huge cracks in the plaster. And with the expansion of cold weather and ice and water, it will fall into my parking lot and crash on people's cars and be a mess. So.
Okay, so the orange wall is the back side, right?
Well, and the other thing here that I'm realizing, I was going to ask this to John. His recommendation on that piece is right here. Here's the 19,000. This other one's the 22,000. I'm like, your numbers don't match. I got it.
It's two separate applications.
Well, the staff report is reversed.
Yeah.
I figured it out. Okay. All right, so there's a motion to approve, the facade on 209 West Pike Street. Is there a second?
I'll make a second to approve.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor of approving the grant for 209 West Pike Street, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The next one is really, the staff report is really page 127.
Are you all set, Brian?
And this would be the one.
Yeah, so this one's 118 South Second Street that we're doing now.
Once again, similar round of improvements and especially getting that one wall corrected.
Yeah, it's really they got mixed up.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure, because here's 135.
Right, they just,
Okay.
that's
So
for the
front of
next
the
one.
building. Okay.
Yeah. This is for this part. So this is really for this.
Yeah, that's where the.
Yeah, so they're not,
confusion is.
right.
And this is repair work at high. This was structural at the bottom.
Yeah, this is for this piece.
That's-
Everybody get it all straightened out.
Is this the 160 page?
Well, 141, 142 are the bids. It goes with this permit for 22,360. And then the rendering is this.
Red.
The red
This
part.
one.
So it's only dealing with that. This was for the first one.
But that's two different buildings.
This is a
This one.
different building.
Yeah, that's on the side.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah, that's this building here.
Yeah.
And that's, they want to do work up on top and then.
they want to do this.
The back of it.
Yeah.
I think we can maybe do that. Let's do those. Where's the quote?
They're here. These are the quote is for this part of the building, correct? This is the part of the building that this one applies to, because our pages are kind of,
That's 118 South Second.
this is 118 South Second.
And building permit application is on page 143.
Yeah.
Are you going to, are you also going to replace the gutter back there?
Am I gonna replace the gutter?
Yeah.
We're taking down the stack. The stack is coming off.
Well, I'm curious because you suffer from the same problem I suffer. Underneath there, looks like you got a hole in the back, rust in the backside of your gutter, and that's what's coming down the wall.
I'm sure they're gonna find more stuff. It's another one.
How did you decide which paint company to go with? Did you find one easier to work with than the other?
I've got a contractor that specializes in the plaster.
Okay.
Plaster is it's expensive.
So-
It's a process.
So the Lost Creek company specializes in that more?
The.
Fresh Coat LLC?
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. But yeah, they both specialize in it, so. And one I believe I pulled the permit under was I don't think it was the Lost Creek one, it was the other one.
The Lost Creek one's the 22,000.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I just was wondering if one, what you found working with them. All right, is there a motion on this application?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second from anybody? Are you still looking? No second? Jordan? No? Okay, there's no second, so that dies. Is there a motion, another motion?
I would make a motion at this time to offer $7,000 on this grant.
Okay. Is there a second?
Why the difference with, instead of 10, why would you only recommend 7?
Well, it refers to, and no disrespect to them, but they keep talking about stucco. They're not putting stucco back in there. They're just putting drop it. So, see right here, stucco from ground 12 feet up, not with stucco, drive it. Now, all that is a mesh and a glue base rub, and then like a mortar mix over top of it. So it's not actual stucco work.
So is that $3,000? I want to make sure.
Well, that's what I'm looking at, and then you're going to do that repair. The other thing is too, because they're gonna have to probably apply for another grant next year, because if you look at this picture here,
I saw
that damage is coming from that gutter. So you take down the stack, that ain't gonna help. So they do the work before winter. We're coming into rainy season and everything like that. I mean, I was originally thinking 5,000 would get that much of it done there, and then they could reapply, because they're gonna need new gutter. And with that amount right there, you see right there, all that black,
Mhm.
and I am a
See what
licensed
comes down.
contractor, you probably got rot behind there that you don't know about. So whoever gave you this estimate, as far as I'm concerned, didn't do a thorough examination of your building. They offered to give you stucco, and they're going to give you drive it. Drive it is like on the front of your building where, and the side where some of that stuff is done. It's actually styrofoam glued, a mesh put over top of it, a screen mesh, and then they do a parging, because I had it done to the front of my building when I reconverted it. So that's,
Well, he also said that he's gonna add a different, he's gonna have to epoxy and add a lot of a more binding,
that's part of the drive it system.
there's gonna be more of more of a stronger epoxy type
That's,
material that's gonna go into.
yeah, well, he'll cut that out, and then he'll put a mesh in there, and it has a glue bonding agent that they seal with, and then they apply the drive it over top of it. So, yeah,
Yeah, so there's
but
a
not stock it.
a motion to fund 7,000. Is there a second? No? Okay. I'll second that we fund 7, so they get something. Is there any discussion? Is there anybody in agreement with granting the 7,000? Say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
No.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that will cover part of it, and then they'll come back
Yeah.
and ask for more to finish the other part.
Yeah.
Okay. We have been at this for 2 hours. I think the rest of the agenda is going to have to wait.
If there are any items in the bylaws or program that you feel would be beneficial to change, we can include those for the
I
next.
think we probably need to talk about it, because there's been some stuff about nonprofits and income generating. I don't know if that's in here, but do we want to fund businesses that are bringing in income, or not, because the nonprofits usually don't. They help people that don't bring income, but I think that's something we should talk
I would
about.
entertain a motion that we table C and D under new business.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Make a
Anybody
motion.
opposed? Motion to adjourn, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Thank you
all
all.
who came.
So,